Aloha. Aloha, harapato, sebuklay, arigato,
手合わせ
sama.
してみない？
Washa, tamina, but I totally was not gonna stream tonight because I don't have a game to play. Totally, that's not what it is. Totally didn't make it. Totally. I totally did not do anything bad. I totally did not do anything bad. And when I mean bad, I mean totally. I'm not lazy to stream nowadays. I am busy. I'm like, I don't want to play games. I'm like, I hate myself. I'm like, I already did this. I already did this. 6 hours. I already did this. I already did all this. 6 hours. In 6 hours at the reset. Oh. In 6 hours, bruv. Bruv. In 6 hours, bruv. Fight Club reference, by the way. I think. I have no idea.
おいそこのチケットはいらねえか。
Well, who the fuck's talking? So I was gonna do. I don't know what I was gonna do. I mean, I can farm random stuff. I mean, I can farm, but I don't know what to farm. Oh yeah, did I show this character? Did I show my new characters? I have no idea. Himeko. I haven't drawn in a while. Should I go back to drawing? Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I haven't drawn in a while. I'm gonna go back to drawing. No. Shedding. Just shedding. Just shedding. Yeah. Open this. Open this. Go home. Open this. Sheila.exe, open that. Every single meme referencing Honkai Star Rail. Alright, open that. I see that. I know somebody saw videos. The history of Halo 2 records. Holy. What? Addicting combat for withering waves. The Evolution 2006. God damn. Wait, you don't see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I will put that draw. Oops. YouTube. Why is that so tiny? Yeah, why the fuck is this so tiny? 와, 내 숟갈.
Enemy spotted.
Well played.
I'm a bird. This is fine.
She's really sweet and she's really nice.
Oh wait. Starting Platinum. Kochi. Irashimasu.
Hello, how are you? I am under the water.
Break.
What?
身を挺しての時間稼ぎか。
黒より黒く闇より暗き漆黒に我が真紅の根高を望みたもう。覚醒の時来たれり無ビューの境界に落ちし断り無行の歪みとなりて現出せよ。
She just looks absolutely badass.
Ew. What the fuck? Why is all references?
よそ見はダメです。みっちゃん。
All anime references.
魔装備で騎士装備と戦うなんて無理ですよ。しーちゃん。
Garbage, can't even one shot.
ショートカットハンマー。
Shortcut it out.
くるりんくるくるくるりんくるくるくるりん。
Look at her eyes, they're normal now.
Wait, weren't they normal before?
You know, she didn't have pupils before.
Oh yeah!
Oh my gosh.
必殺パンチボカーン。バーン。
Garbage.
That's how fucking broken this character is, chat.
さようならでございます。
Wow, fun.
頭を冷やすな。
Meme complete.
君らはこの力について何も知らない。星が砕け散る様を見るがいい。
That's not this channel.
生徒。君らに選ぶ余地はない。
The Rico reference. I know that one. Dominated. Use the triple to bypass Kafka and become dominated butter. Listen. Wait, I didn't know that was double a challenge. Trash can. Wait, hold up. Wait, hold up. Why did she have trash can on her head?
こんな大きなダイヤモン
I think that's modded.
大きなダイヤモンド見たことないでしょ。
くるくる
あげるね。
Wait, hold up. Max volume on that.
こん
Yeah.
な大きなダイヤモンド見たことないでしょ。あげるね。くるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるりんくるくるりんくるくるくるくるくるりん。よし。くるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるくるりんくるくるりんくるくるくるりん。
No. Delete that. I'm not using that. I'm not using that one. Fuck. Way I can use this. Fíjate, y by todo más cerca monitor, it will crash my PC. Nope, I cannot use this. Delete layer. I'll watch this later.
The collab characters from Mortal Kombat 1 leaked earlier and they're fucking ridiculous. That's what Chase said yesterday. I haven't looked yet. Let's watch the trailer. Thanks, Resub Luke.
It is time.
Also, heads up, I hate the title. I want to make that clear right off rip. I hate this trend where you get like the fucking deep into a franchise and then you just make the title Mortal Kombat. Or in this case, even more egregious, Mortal Kombat 1. I hate it. I hate it. I hated when God of War did it with God of War 2018. I hate Call of Duty that they did it for Modern Warfare in 2019. I hate that Star Wars Battlefront did it in 2018. I hate that so much. I really do.
And peace.
God damn it, I'm already tilted on it. I saw someone using the same cope I see for all the other titles, that it's a timeline reset or a soft reboot. I understand that. Just choose a different name. There's no reason to not just give it a different name. There's literally no reason. I get like that argument of it, but it's a soft reboot, so it makes sense. Okay, just choose a different name. It's not that important. Mortal Kombat 12 would have worked fine. Would have been fine. Or even if you wanted to stay with Mortal Kombat 1, just call it MK1 or something. M1. I don't know. It's just something that's just not Mortal Kombat 1. Liu Kang has Giga Chad chin? Yeah. Liu Kang's always been a cool character though. There's really no lame characters in Mortal Kombat. Like at all. Thanks to Resub Thunder Muffin, Celius, and Swoogity. Framed in the Prime Shadow and Tier 1 Mick.
It is fine to draw.
Kano? Bro, Kano's fucking awesome. What are you talking about? The only one that I might give you is Stryker, because he's literally just kind of a cop, and that's it. That's like his whole thing. The leaked collab characters are Omni-Man, Homelander, and Peacemaker. That's fucking awesome, if that's true. Half the roster from Deception was mid, to be honest. I legitimately don't remember Deception that well. I know that was like the story one, where you go through like story missions as opposed to like a normal Mortal Kombat game.
Nah.
But I legitimately don't remember the characters from Deception that well. Thanks to Tier 1 Dave. This guy here, what do you think about MK1? I think it's great. Hate the name. Absolutely hate the name. That's just part of that fucking trend. Just call it anything else. Mortal Kombat also fucked up the name before with MK9. True! They already did go down this road back in the day. Mortal Kombat 9 was just Mortal Kombat, wasn't it? Yeah, it was just Mortal Kombat. I forgot MK9 wasn't just called MK9. You're right. I completely forgot.
Oh, what the fuck?
Mortal Kombat 9 is also my favorite, by the way. Not only my favorite Mortal Kombat, but legitimately my favorite fighting game. Kratos and Freddy Krueger were amazing characters in that game for DLC. I forgot they were in it, I'm not gonna lie to you.
That's
I like tried to get
okay,
competitive with it, and I didn't see many Kratos and Freddy Kruegers. Fighting games eaten well in 2023. That's what I said. You had Street Fighter 6 in like 3 weeks. Eventually Tekken 8. I don't know if it's this year or next year, but Tekken 8's on the horizon, and now Mortal Kombat. Fighting game players eaten real well. Project L's not this year. That doesn't have a release date. But yeah, I mean, it's in development, so yeah, I guess that too. Oh no, I was gonna look at the Lords of the Fallen trailer now. Thanks for reminding me. Well, the first Lords of the Fallen game was absolute dog shit, yeah. This has nothing to do with that, I don't think. That's another... God damn it, wait, this is another great example. This is another Lords of the Fallen game, and the first game was called Lords of the Fallen already. I think it was Lord of the Fallen, though. What was it? It was like a one-letter change. No, it was actually just Lords of the Fallen then, too. 2014.
Delete this later.
Oh, this one's the Lords of the Fallen. That's right. So the first one was Lords of the Fallen, and this one is the Lords of the Fallen. I'm getting real tired of this.
I'm looking up a fucking asset.
No, I'm not gonna play the Street Fighter 6
license
beta.
option,
I'm gonna
though.
wait for the full game to come out.
Assets.
Better be
I'm
good because the
looking up an
last one was
asset.
trash. The last one was trash. There's the last one for comparison if you want to see.
What is this? Oh, monthly
I was so
pass?
excited for this game too.
Oh,
I
oh,
couldn't
monthly
run it on my
pass.
original computer, so I went out and I bought a gaming
Oh.
laptop with the bare minimum specs to run this. It's my first gaming laptop purchase to play fucking Lords of the Fallen.
Download
And it was
this.
so bad.
Holy fuck, the first thing I found, sign in required.
There's the resub Juice and Anakin.
The first
So,
thing I
new
found.
one's looking much better.
is shit I'm looking for. Wait, this poses. Wait
Did I
a
see the
minute.
newer
Wait
Lords
a
of the
minute.
Fallen
My
CG trailer? What, not this
juicer
one?
is on fire.
I just watched this one.
Ah. Okay.
Was there another one?
I need a
was
chair for
the
that. What the
announced one
fuck?
with Mother.
Wait a minute. Hold. Wait a minute. These poses are. Wait a minute.
Why are you
Download,
speaking
download,
riddles?
download,
What does that mean?
download,
The
download,
announced
download.
one with Mother? Who's Mother?
Sleeping girl pose.
The song Mother. Oh, yeah, that's the original one.
Who the fuck?
Yeah. They played this during the PlayStation showcase, I think.
Wait, I
I'm
can
pretty
use
sure.
this. I can use this.
Yeah,
I can use
I saw this. And I said back then too, I was like, damn, that's a weird choice for a song, but it was hype. And yeah, I'll play Diablo 4 when it launches. Alright, now I'm all caught up on the things I wanted to do.
Anything else is not free? 50 gold. Wait, so it's free for unlimited time, then 50 gold for each. That's the post I want. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I almost... I didn't show anything. Okay. Ew. That was scary. So this person uploads poses and then posts them on for free. And then I don't understand. I have to sign up. Wait, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. Wait, so each of these costs 50 cents? Oh, man. Wait, so I can buy poses? I'll try that next time. There's a pose I really want, but it's fucking big fucking 50 cents shit. Fuck, bitch. Fuck. Yeah, this one stays. That one stays. That one stays. Okay, so downloads. Oh my god. Oh my god. I need a new one. I'm gonna do this. Boop. Okay. 600 resolution. Okay. What the fuck am I watching? Wait, I can work with this. I can work with this. I can work with this. Wait, I can work with this. I can work with this. Wait, I can work with this. I can work with this. And then there's this other pose. What the fuck? Yeah. Oh. Why did I say that weird? What the f- Okay. So I figured it out, but I want... I can't. I can't get the angle that I want. I can't get the angle that I want. My head hurts. I cannot get it. Fuck. I don't like this one at all. Wait, hold up. Wait, hold up. Hold up. Wait a minute. Fuck, I keep pressing the wrong one. I keep pressing the wrong one. Wait, I think this is okay. It's okay. I think this one's okay. Wait, what about this pose? I'll put in all of them. What? Brain? Fuck. Now, okay. Hey there. We're going with this one. Nope, the first one. This one. We're going this one. I'm gonna put the fifth dash, go to one dash, go to three. Draw the fifth dash, go to one dash, go to three, part two. Okay, let's see if it doesn't crash. Let's see if it doesn't crash. Let's see, it doesn't crash. Draw. Look at that. Oh yeah, the tab is not fucking on. I'm an idiot. Okay, this is may lag the computer. Ah, there we go. Okay, now where is my thingy and my thingy? Now hold up. You know what I could have done? I could have played Zelda tonight. I have Zelda, Breath of the Wild and the other one. I could have played them both. Oh, and that reminds me, I need to buy the amiibos. Yeah, maybe not right now. Maybe not right now though. I need a new computer, not gonna lie. Need fail at drawing, baby. Okay, so here the posters with. Okay, so here's this. Then here's this. And here's this. I was thinking of doing like a maid. Like something to do with a maid for this. But I don't know. And then this is this. And this. I know what I'm gonna do here. 100%. Fuck you. What is this? Oh yeah, you can see that. Wait, what? Wait a minute. What happened to my overlays? Why is it there? What's my source? What the fuck? What the fuck? YouTube, I can be here. Alright, have fun with that.
If you've ever tried playing Halo 2 on Legendary difficulty, you know that it's one of gaming's most brutal challenges. It goes way beyond the hardest setting of most games. Enemies are stronger, they're more plentiful, and they kill you almost instantly. Beating Halo 2 on Legendary is a serious achievement. But one group of gamers takes it a step further. They strive to beat Halo 2 Legendary as fast as physically possible. And through thousands of collective hours from the game's best players, they've taken the record to unimaginable levels. this is the history of Halo 2 World Records. And now a word from this video's sponsor, Xbox Game Pass. Valheim is now available to play on Xbox with Game Pass, and to celebrate, they're hosting a...
What the fuck was so loud? And it's a Halo game. Well, okay, that's fine. That's cool being sponsored by Game Pass while also talking about Halo.
Game Pass has hundreds of high-quality games like Game Pass seen ever since its release in 2004. Players competed on both individual levels and the full game on each of the 4 difficulty modes. While all these records were lowered over time, the most prestigious one was the full game Legendary speedrun, thanks to its incredible difficulty. Halo 2 Legendary was featured at GDQ events, and videos were shared all over the internet. It was a very popular speedrun.
Okay, this is lore. My lore at the time of this game, I was 5 years old, 7 years old. They came out in 2004, and I was a child, so I never knew this game existed until I played Halo Reach.
But the actual record timeline is another story. From 2004 through 2014, Halo 2's legendary world record was near continuously held by one player, Mr. Monopoly. Monopoly became synonymous with Halo speedruns, holding records and playing the game at live events. But the timeline of the world record itself isn't all that interesting. Monopoly got the Halo 2 record in 2006 and remained dominant for the next 8 years. However, in June 2014, the Halo community got a big surprise. 343 Industries announced Halo the Master Chief Collection, a compilation of all the mainline Halo games. And to celebrate Halo 2's 10th anniversary, 343 was going to remaster it as Halo 2 Anniversary, with graphical upgrades and a few other changes. And it just so happens that members of their development team were speedrun fans. Big enough fans that they flew out Goat Rope and Monopoly, top speedrunners for the first 2 Halo games, to help playtest the games a few months before their release. They spent about 20 hours playtesting, then sat down with 343's franchise writer to name achievements after top Halo speedrunners. And fittingly, the achievement for beating Halo 2 Legendary quickly enough? Monopolized. It's clear that from the get-go, 343 Industries designed Halo the Master Chief Collection with speedrunning in mind. While most of the games included were essentially identical to their original release, Halo 2 Anniversary was sufficiently different that it became its own speedrun category. So, right at the game's release in November 2014, players began running Halo 2 Anniversary. Monopoly and a runner named HockeyFan48 traded the legendary record back and forth in the first few days. But the first run we're going to look at came a few weeks later. Halo 2 Legendary, completed in 2 hours and 17 minutes by none other than Mr. Monopoly.
Oh, Monopoly.
First off, Monopoly went into this run expecting to die. A lot. It's just not realistic to have a deathless playthrough of Halo 2 on Legendary, unless you're going slowly and being extremely careful. Fortunately, there are checkpoints throughout each level, so when you die, you can quickly enter the menu and revert to the last checkpoint. But Monopoly didn't have to worry about dying too much in the first level, the Armory, which is essentially a 2.5-minute cutscene that serves as a tutorial. Given the length of the run, we won't talk about every level in depth right now, but Cairo Station is the first real level, and Monopoly did his best to move quickly and ignore as many enemies as possible. When he had to fight them, he tried to clear out the elites quickly with an overcharged plasma pistol shot, then a headshot from the battle rifle. He also strafed to try and avoid being shot, but still had to take cover at times, and was careful to avoid being too aggressive. Next up was Outskirts, which has a famous intended trick from the developers. By doing a series of grenade jumps, where you throw a grenade and time a jump to get a boost upwards, you can get on top of the buildings and make it out of bounds. This lets you skip fighting a long wave of enemies on the ground. The second half of the stage involves a lot of driving, and Monopoly switched to the Warthog since the Marines soak up a lot of the damage and let you live longer. Eventually, Monopoly arrived at the Oracle. This is one of the longest levels in the run, with wave after wave of enemies to fight through. But he had tricks to help. On the elevator, you're normally supposed to slowly ride it all the way down. But if you wait for a death box to despawn, you can fall off the edge and land on the precise spot you need to continue the level. The rest of the level was a lot of clearing out enemies, and 5 deaths to go along with it. Delta Halo is one of the most broken levels in the game. He started by jumping on the hillside to get on top, then hitting a trigger that allowed him to progress and continue on top of the hill. He then got in a ghost, and was supposed to activate a bridge to get across this gap. But instead, he did this. It turns out, a grenade is strong enough to boost vehicles as well, and Monopoly was able to save half a minute. The next level is called Regret, and it features one of the biggest tricks in the run, Early Gondola. The intended route at the start is to work your way around the structures and platforms, then land on the middle platform, which acts as a trigger to send the gondola away. You can't ride it yet. After killing all the enemies, another gondola begins to come toward you, and once it arrives, you can hop on and ride it to progress through the level. It'd save a lot of time if you could just ride on that initial gondola that goes away, but as soon as you get near it, it's gone. That's where Early Gondola comes into play. Monopoly used a careful jumping route to go straight to the gondola, including a slide jump, where you use the extra momentum from a slide to extend your jump across a gap. He then left the gondola to hit the edge of the trigger on the middle platform, then quickly got back on the gondola just before it pulled away. He had to avoid dying on the way from the enemies that spawned, but once he was in the clear, he had saved 2.5 minutes by not having to wait for the second gondola. Now, he did die 6 times throughout the level, but using Early Gondola at the start was able to make up for most of that. A few levels later came Gravemind, the longest and most notorious level in the run. To get an idea of what I mean, this is how the level begins on Legendary.
Wow.
Wait, it hit mine.
And to clarify, Monopoly
72
knew
DPI?
this was
Oh,
coming.
fuck.
Even so, he struggled to take cover in time. And it's a
doing
good
another one.
representation of the rest of the level. There are enemies everywhere, and Monopoly had to strike a balance between keeping moving and trying to stay alive. Gravemind ended up taking him over 26 minutes, and he died 34 times. He did have some tricks to help out, like jumping into a sloped rock so he could go out of bounds and walk above long hallways. This helped him avoid fighting certain enemies. Monopoly also used a trick called Corridor Deload. During reinforcement battles, he stood in precise spots between waves to fool the game into thinking he was out of bounds, so the enemies didn't detect him and never spawned in. But even with tricks like this to help, he was overmatched. He died all throughout Gravemind, but eventually he did make it through. After a couple shorter levels in Uprising and High Charity, Monopoly arrived at the Great Journey, Halo 2's final level. He was able to despawn the Wraiths by simply driving away from them and hitting a checkpoint, and then went inside with the Ghost. He died several times while trying to navigate through, then got in the Banshee to wait and enter the final section of the level. Once inside, he took out the enemies, took out the final boss, and the run was complete. Monopoly died 66 times throughout the game's 14 levels, with more than half of those coming in Gravemind alone. That's Halo 2 on Legendary for you. But to be fair, Monopoly was at a disadvantage. He was the Halo 2 Classic record holder, and this was Halo 2 Anniversary. That meant adjusting to slightly different physics, tricks, and enemy behavior. Monopoly is one of the best to ever play Halo 2, but 66 deaths obviously wasn't the end goal. However, he left the Halo 2 Anniversary record up for grabs, as after this run, he went back to playing Halo 2 Classic. In fact, that's what most of the community did. Despite Halo 2 Classic having a history dominated by Monopoly, it remained the more popular speedrun. And there's a specific reason why. See, when 343 remastered Halo 2, they based it off of a patched version of the game. As a result, many glitches from the original game weren't present. It may have seemed like a good move at the time, but for speedrunners, these glitches were used all over the place. So, since Halo 2 Anniversary couldn't be optimized like Classic could, many runners simply ignored it. That being said, it wasn't completely abandoned. A community of runners still played Halo 2 Anniversary, trying to better optimize the run with fewer deaths and faster movements. Numerous world records were set, and the time came down quickly. But sadly, from 2015 through 2017, nearly no legendary world record videos survive. It's hard to say why people didn't save their times, especially ones that were world records. Twitch automatically saved them as past broadcasts for a while, but those eventually were deleted, and no records were ever highlighted or uploaded to YouTube. Although we can't watch these runs today, we do thankfully know what the timeline was. Here's what survives of the early Halo 2 Anniversary record history. In early 2015, speedrunner Kryphon set a series of world records, ultimately taking the time to 2:03:58. Kryphon was a former competitive Halo player, and got into Halo 2 speedruns after seeing the speedrunning achievements that 343 added. He spent a few months playing Halo 2 Anniversary, lowered the record, then moved on to playing Halo 2 Classic. A few months later, Andy's Mountain came along. He got into running the game the same way Kryphon did, seeing the speedrun achievements and trying it out himself. And throughout June 2015, he took the record from 2:03 to 2 hours flat. Finally, a few months later, Nazar23 took the top spot. He was big into speedrunning individual levels, especially Regret, setting numerous records there for Halo 2 Anniversary. He didn't have much interest in running the full game, but eventually he was persuaded to try it. And Nazar23 wound up getting the first sub-2 hour run in the game's history, later lowering the time to 1:56. Late in 2016, a pretty big change was made. The community voted to subtract loads from the final time, since they could vary slightly from runner to runner. That took about 6 minutes off of all runs, meaning the world record was now retimed as a 1:50. And about a year after this change, one final record was set, a 1:49 from speedrunner Jervalin, who'd been running the game for a few months and saw his chance to take the top spot. So, this is Halo 2 Anniversary's early timeline, an irregular progression, with bursts of activity followed by months of silence. It's unfortunate that no videos survived, but at least the history is preserved. But finally, in April 2018, Jervalin came in clutch. He set a new world record and saved the video. This is the first time we can watch a Halo 2 Anniversary record in over 3 years. We last saw the record at 217. Now, it's down to 146. This is gonna look pretty different. Well, right from the get-go, he was more aggressive. All throughout the run, Jervalen attacked enemies more directly instead of hanging back. In Cairo alone, the first real level, this saved him 45 seconds. While playing more aggressively can be faster, you do run the risk of dying more. But Jervalen improved in that department too. He saved nearly 3 minutes over the following 3 levels by reducing the amount of deaths. Another major area of improvement was new strategies. Many of these had been slowly implemented over the last 3.5 years, but this is the first time we can see them in a run. And some are pretty huge. In Oracle, Jervalen sent the elevator up, then got underneath it and sent it back down. The result was him being launched into the air, shooting through the elevator shaft to the top rather than having to ride it. This saves 10 seconds on its own, but also has an important side effect. The game makes you invincible in the elevator shaft, and since the elevator never reaches the top, the trigger to take your invincibility away is never hit. So, you're invincible for the remainder of the level. This trick is called the pressure launch, and was found by none other than Mr. Monopoly. Delta Halo was also drastically changed. The level has 5 triggers that must be hit, and Jervalen was able to hit them, then work his way out of bounds to take shortcuts. As long as he activated all the triggers, he was able to scale mountains and cut corners all day. He did this more than Monopoly did, and was able to skip fighting many enemies. But the biggest strategy overhaul came in Halo 2's final level, the Great Journey. You need to get the Spectre inside the final room. Normally that's not possible, since the Spectre travels on the ground and the door to enter is high in the sky. But by parking it in a safe space earlier in the level, then hopping back in later and riding along the right side ridge, you can stop on top and wait for the Scarab to break open the door. The ending trigger extends out of the building, so you can precisely let the Spectre drop down and fall into the cutscene. If done properly, the Spectre will survive and make it inside. And once there, you can perform one of Halo 2's finest tricks, Johnson cloning. Johnson, one of the AI Marines, is able to repeatedly lower the final boss's shield so you can inflict damage. Johnson only shoots the boss so often, limiting your abilities to damage him. So let's find a way to create more Johnsons. By forcing Johnson to get in the Spectre, the game detects he's not in the level and spawns another one. By forcing that Johnson to get in, the process repeats. And you can create infinite Johnsons, although each additional one costs more time. Eventually, the game spawns one final Johnson, and you take the other 3 Johnsons to the middle platform in the Spectre. All 4 Johnsons attack the boss, his shields are lowered more often, and the fight is complete in a fraction of the time. Thanks to Johnson cloning and other tricks across the run, Jervalen had a massive leg up on Monopoly. But the biggest difference wasn't new strategies. It was the amount of deaths. Monopoly died 66 times in his run. How many deaths did Jervalen have? 9. Jervalen's 146 didn't last on top too long. Even though much of the community was focused on Halo 2 Classic, there was still one top runner who kept his attention on the remake. His name was ByNails, and almost immediately he began setting records in Halo 2 Anniversary. That May, he beat Jervalen's run by about 3 minutes. There wasn't much in the way of new strategies, but there's a couple levels in particular where he saved big time. Quarantine Zone, the level directly before Gravemind, can be a major run killer. The final 5 minutes are essentially an auto-scroller, but the first section involves doing some extremely careful driving. You have to go from room to room, dodging enemies as much as possible and hoping you don't get sniped. Deaths can be very costly depending on your last checkpoint, and although Jervalen died once, Nails was able to drive faster and avoid dying, so he saved a full minute. Now, on average, Nails did die more across the run, 11 deaths versus Jervalen's 9, but his deaths were less costly and he played faster elsewhere. In Oracle, he had small time saves while in combat that added up to roughly half a minute. And in Gravemind, despite dying 5 times, he actually gained time over Jervalen. It's an important lesson in Halo 2 speedrunning. Deaths can be costly, yes, but if you're aggressive enough with your play, the time save from being faster can outweigh a few extra deaths. Nails had a great run, but as mentioned earlier, the community's attention was elsewhere. Without the glitches that Halo 2 Classic had, most runners just viewed Halo 2 Anniversary as a sideshow. Despite some solid recent records from Jervalen and Nails, top runners put most of their efforts into the original game. That's the way it had been for years, and it showed no signs of stopping. But then, in August 2018, 343 Industries made an announcement that changed everything. Just shy of 4 years after the game's release, 343 modified Halo 2 Anniversary's mechanics. There were a handful of minor changes, but the most relevant one for speedrunners? They added glitches from Halo 2 Classic back into the game. It's time to introduce you to Sword Tech. When Halo 2 Classic was released in 2004, it had one particularly game-breaking glitch. You lock onto an enemy with a weapon, then switch to the energy sword and cancel the animation of the switch by reloading right as it starts. This creates a 2-frame window where the energy sword turns into a long-range weapon and can lock onto that same faraway enemy. If you lunge in that tiny window, you'll go flying across the map. This can be done throughout the run, and variations can save even more time. You can jump while flying to get more air, and soar past nearby enemies by adding in a jump and action input. Bungie patched Sword Tech out of Halo 2 in 2005, and when 343 remastered the game, they followed suit. But in 2018, with most of the speedrun community ignoring Halo 2 Anniversary, Sword Tech was reintroduced. A rare instance of developers adding glitches intentionally. And it worked. Speedrunners began paying attention to Halo 2 Anniversary. Within months, it would surpass the popularity of Halo 2 Classic. But right away, it was clear that the world record would be shattered. Sword Tech saves several minutes across the run. You not only gain time by flying through the air, but also reduce your odds of dying by skipping over enemies on the ground. The record wasn't going to remain at 143 for long, and in October 2018, the first world record with Sword Tech was set, 137.25 by Kryphon. Kryphon did sword flying all over the run. A couple big ones were in Cairo, skipping having to traverse the outside sections. There were a few smaller ones in Arbiter and Oracle, but the most significant one came in Regret. Instead of having to slowly ride on the first gondola, Kryphon got a bit over halfway through, locked onto a faraway enemy, and took off. There were a handful of other significant sword flies later, particularly in Gravemind. But Sword Tech wasn't the only change made in the patch. 343 made slight modifications to the entire physics engine, making it more in line with Halo 2 Classic. So, one other broken mechanic was inadvertently added back in: butterflying. By getting an enemy in position right above you, you can melee and then cancel to preserve your momentum and travel around through the air. This is used in two major places. In Gravemind, you're supposed to go down the elevator to play the prison section, then go back up and resume the rest of the level. But instead, by luring an enemy over and falling with him on top of you, you can butterfly back upwards by repeatedly melee canceling to activate the elevator that takes you back up. The game thinks the prison section is complete, and you save 3 to 4 minutes by not even having to go down there. Prison Skip was found by Mr. Monopoly in 2016, but couldn't be applied to Halo 2 Anniversary until now.
This works! I did it! I skipped Gravemind Prison! This is Gravemind Prison Skip!
The other trick is in High Charity, Halo 2's second to last level. The ending portion of High Charity is actually right below where you begin. So if you lure an enemy over and begin butterflying off the edge, you can time your melee so that you have a controlled descent down to the ending. You also have to navigate to the side at times, and it can be quite tricky, but if done properly, you'll skip playing the level and save close to 3 minutes. The trigger for High Charity Skip was found by a player named Nibre, while several others made the trick a reality. The modern setup was found by Monopoly. With Swordflies, Prison Skip, and High Charity Skip all added in, Cryphon had the potential to save over 10 minutes. But his run was only a 6-minute improvement. He died 19 times, and most sections of the run were slower outside of the new strategies. It was an unoptimized time, understandable given that it was the first world record after the patch. With sword tech being possible, the community was more excited about Halo 2 Anniversary than ever before. The strategies had been found. Now, they had to optimize the record. Over the following few months, Nails took the time down to 1 hour and 32 minutes. Nails had turned into an absolute monster since his last record, and to this day he's considered to be the greatest Halo speedrunner of all time. He's gotten top times in every main game and has held the record in several. Back in late 2018, he was focused on Halo 2 Anniversary, and took 5 minutes off the record, starting with a 135 and then getting a 132. Nails didn't do much different from Cryphon, but he did die less, 13 times versus Cryphon's 19. Was that really enough for such a large record improvement? Well, 5 minutes might seem like a pretty big difference, but that's because of the nature of Halo 2 Legendary. It's an incredibly difficult speedrun to optimize. There's too many places to die, and it's inevitable that things will go wrong. Since deaths cost roughly 30 seconds on average, it's easy to see why there was so much room for time save. Just 5 days after Nails' 132, another 3 minutes came off the record. A runner named Rocats got the first sub 130 in the game's history. Rocats got into the game in 2016, but like so many others, he returned once sword flying was patched back in. He grinded for a few months in late 2018, and in January 2019, he got a 129.55 with only 8 deaths. Most of his time save came early, and the only death in the first half was a nearly unavoidable snipe in Metro. He bled time in Gravemind due to 6 deaths, but played Great Journey much more aggressively. He did sword tech faster and stopped to kill fewer enemies. The record was in a good spot, being under 130. But despite the progress, there was still room for improvement. Tricks could be cleaner and combat could be smoother. So, Rocats continued to play. And over the following several months, this is what he did. By early 2021, the time was down to 1:26:34. A decent chunk of time save came from the Regret boss fight, where he had an extremely clean kill in his 1:26:39. You have to board him 5 times and reach a damage threshold each time. He can spawn in 8 different locations after each cycle, and if he spawns far away and you get unlucky with other enemy spawns, you can die very easily. But in this run, Rokats had an extremely quick fight, with no deaths and close spawns from the boss. For years, Halo 2 Classic had dwarfed Halo 2 Anniversary in popularity. But how the turntables? Thanks to the patch, Halo 2 Anniversary had surpassed Halo 2 Classic. As expected, competition at the top started to increase. A player named Firebanch became the second runner to cut 130 in early 2021. But Rokats ultimately prevailed, getting a 124 in August 2021 with a faster boss kill in Great Journey. By September, Rokats had held the record for close to 3 years straight and showed no signs of giving it up. But then, the Halo 2 community voted to make an interesting rule change. As mentioned before, Halo 2 starts with a level called the Armory, which is basically a 2.5-minute cutscene. There's no enemies, and time saves are extremely minimal. It's pretty frustrating to have to begin every speedrun attempt with this level. So, in September 2021, the community set up a vote to determine if it could just be skipped, and all speedruns could start on level 2, Cairo. Many old school runners were against removing Armory, and remain against it to this day. But in the end, the community chose to remove it, and all Halo 2 runs could now start from Cairo. This changed a lot. For one thing, all runs were now 2.5 minutes faster, so the world record was retimed as a 122. But it also changed how runs were done going forward. You could get a good run going much more easily, as you didn't have to replay Armory every time you wanted to start over. Cairo could be better optimized, and ultimately, the entire run could be too. Removing Armory was certainly a controversial decision, but it brought a new wave of popularity to the speedrun. A couple months after the rule change, Kryphon got a great run going. He hadn't held the record in over 3 years, but he was going to have a chance at this. He saved a big chunk early in Cairo and never looked back, slowly gaining time over the following levels. The important swordflies in Regret went well, as did the boss fight. And after a gold split on Sacred Icon, he was nearly 2 minutes ahead, and on pace for a 123. He entered Quarantine Zone, 5 levels from the end. But then... a couple untimely deaths and some slow navigating meant Kryphon's lead nearly entirely vanished. His world record chance was gone, but he still got a nice personal best out of it. But Rokats had better look out. With Armory being removed from timing, other runners were more determined than ever to get the world record. In particular, there were 3 of them. Kryphon was in second place, and we've seen how much potential he had. He'd been dominating Halo 2 Classic for years, and with a better Quarantine Zone, he would have had the Halo 2 Anniversary record as well. In third place was a runner named Sinister. He'd been running the game for a couple years, slowly lowering himself into world record contention. And while he was still 5 minutes behind the record, he had the potential to get it with a really strong run. And finally, there was Zoo. He was originally a Halo 3 runner, but later started focusing on Halo 2 Anniversary with Kryphon as his mentor. He was the farthest from the record, with his main goal being to beat Kryphon and get second place. But Zoo had one advantage over his competitors: thanks to a trick he went for right as the speedrun begins: tram skip. At the start of Cairo, there's a tram that leaves behind you. It passes by a later section of the level, so if you can just go where the tram's headed, you can skip the first part of Cairo. Problem is, there's an invisible barrier that pushes you back, and it doesn't disappear until after a door closes that you also can't pass through. If you try to approach the barrier, you'll get pushed back through the open door. There's no way to make it through. Well, in 2019, Nails found a way around this,
Nails.
and in 2020, Monopoly improved upon it with an easier method. You start by shooting your teammates until just before they turn and aggro to you. You then push a Marine into the corner of the tram, and as he rides away, you follow him. By spamming melee, he'll become an enemy and you can cling to him as the tram passes through the door. Once the barrier disappears, you're free to move forward through the rest of the level. This saves 45 seconds as you don't have to play the start of Cairo, but it comes with a catch. Your teammates will try to kill you for the remainder of the level. This isn't too problematic on easy mode, but on legendary, your teammates kill you fast. So, despite being discovered years earlier, it wasn't used in full game runs. Until Zoo came along. He had a lot of runs die early, but he had a 45-second advantage by going for it. So, in short, all three of these runners had a chance to get the record. Let the competition begin. Well, in May 2022, Zoo struck first, getting a 1:24.29. With just one personal best, he had nearly accomplished his goal of beating Kryphon. The run wasn't on record pace for too long, but this was still a remarkable time. Zoo was starting to make a name for himself in Halo 2.
At this point, when I had the 124, I wasn't really looking to get record at the time. My main goal at that point was just to bop Kryphon, like a student becomes a teacher type of thing.
When he ended up getting the 124, I think his goal was to just bop me at the time, like you mentioned. I probably told him that he can get whatever time he wants and the torch is his to take.
With this run, it was now clear. Zoo was the odds-on favorite to get the record. Despite taking a break to play more Halo 3, where he set that legendary world record, Zoo quickly came back to Halo 2, and on May 28th, he was able to get on an excellent run. He pulled further and further ahead. After Quarantine Zone, he was minutes ahead of his personal best, but he still had to get through Gravemind.
Like, Gravemind is like the main run killer, you know, like everyone just fears Gravemind. I had like a 920 Gravemind, which is pretty good for a full game legendary run. So after I finished that, I was getting nervous, I was kind of getting shaky. This run actually had a shot to get record.
When they enter the last level, it's exciting. Like, at least as a long-time runner of the game, like your heartbeat gets way up there with them because you know just how much pressure they have on themselves and just how much pressure there is to perform.
But unfortunately, he couldn't lock it down this time. He ended with a 1:22.37, just 17 seconds behind the world record.
You know, I missed record by 17 seconds at the time, but I was really excited to get a PB that close to record. I was pretty happy with it. I was pretty motivated by it to kind of keep going.
So, Zoo continued onward. He didn't play for a few weeks thanks to Moist Critical's Deathless Lasso challenge, but afterwards he got back to it. And on August 7th, he was on another remarkable pace, gaining time in level after level. After Sacred Icon, his lead was nearly a full minute, way ahead of world record pace. But unfortunately, Quarantine Zone did not go well, and an untimely death in Gravemind was the nail in the coffin.
I mean, as a longtime Halo 2 runner, that's like classic Halo 2 legendary speedrunning. You will lose every single run, or at least a majority of them, to Quarantine Zone through Great Journey.
This was now 2 huge record chances that he'd missed. He was starting to let it slip away. And right on cue, Kryphon and Sinister started to close in. Just 3 days apart, they set new personal bests of a low 124 and a low 125.
I saw, hey, I still have what it takes, I guess, you know? And I might have a shot at it.
I was still like kind of motivated to grind it, but yeah, I was like losing hope a little bit.
A couple more weeks passed, with nothing from Zoo. But finally, he was able to get on another good run. He started with Tramskip, then kept it close over the following levels. Oracle and Regret were both solid, and he ended up with a gold split on Sacred Icon. Things were looking pretty good.
He was getting into Gravemind at a pretty good time, actually. You know, you look at his run, he says, here it comes as soon as the Gravemind load happens.
Alright, here it comes. Pray for me.
Gravemind was okay, with 5 deaths, but he followed it up with 2 more really good splits. Through it all, Zoo wound up being ahead going into Great Journey, a level where he had even more time to save.
Seeing how far ahead he was of the record actually entering it and how much time he had to play with, all I'm thinking in my head right here is, you've done this a million times before, just hold it down. You have time to lose, do not full tilt if Great Journey trolls you. All you need to do is hang on, and you got this.
It wasn't the best, it wasn't the cleanest, but it was good enough to pull out the record.
Did I do it? Oh my god, let's go. Barely a 121 as well.
More so than anything, finally getting the record, I was just relieved.
He had finally broken through the barrier. He had finally taken his first record, and the sky's the limit at this point, you know? All he has to do now is go wherever he wants to.
Zoo had the record, but he admitted in the description that he didn't expect to hang on to it for long. Rocats was still around, and Kryphon and Sinister weren't far behind. So, despite having accomplished his goal, he continued to do runs. And to shake things up a bit, he decided to start going for a new, incredibly risky strategy in Regret: the gondola launch. You start by getting on the first gondola at the start of Regret. While on it, you can deload the Phantom by repeatedly meleeing. This delays the checkpoint, which in turn deletes the Phantom when it reaches the middle platform. As a byproduct of all this, a timer starts on the second gondola, and when it runs out, it'll travel back to the start. Once you get to the middle platform, you push the button and finish killing the enemies. This acts as a trigger to send the second gondola forward. So the second gondola now has 2 commands, one to send it back and one to send it forward. And if these commands overlap within a roughly 1 second window, the game doesn't know what to do. So it deloads the gondola entirely. And the strange result of this, if you're standing on the gondola, you'll get launched through the air. Nails figured out how to do this back in 2018, but for years it was considered too risky to do in legendary runs. You save a good 30 to 40 seconds by not having to wait to do the sword fly, but missing it costs nearly 2 minutes. Risky as it was, Zoo decided it was time to try implementing it in his runs. It would undoubtedly cause more runs to die at Regret, but the 40-second time save was too good to pass up. It could lead to some crazy paces. Well, on September 26th, Zoo got on a run with the gondola launch. It pushed him over a minute ahead of the world record. This was a fantastic opportunity, but it got even more serious when he got a gold split on Gravemind, the fastest he had ever done it in a run. With just 3 levels to go, he was 2 minutes ahead of the record. This was a chance for a sub 120, a time that seemed unthinkable to Zoo just weeks ago. All he needed was to get through 3 more levels, He just had to close it out. And well, here's how it went. In High Charity, he tried to lure the Flood over so he could do High Charity skip, but failed and had to revert. He succeeded on the second try, but accidentally pushed him off the ledge. These time losses hurt, yet he still retained a minute lead. But Great Journey was even worse. He died 3 times, including twice while driving the Spectre. He still finished the run off as a world record, but it was nowhere near what it could have been.
Wait a minute.
This was starting to become a habit for Zoo. He was getting crazy paces late into runs, and things went wrong in the final couple levels to derail it. But this run did make one thing clear. Sub 120 was now the ultimate goal for Halo 2. Zoo had been on pace for it. Now, he just needed a clean ending. Well, a few weeks later, he got on a run that fell behind in the middle levels. He had to revert to the last checkpoint 5 times in regret, despite getting the gondola launch. He also had a slower ending to Sacred Icon, and couldn't match the gold split in Gravemind of his last run. Zoo was running against balanced splits that he had made, but in reality, he was about 45 seconds behind the record going into High Charity. But he knew he could save that time in the final 2 levels. And despite dying once in High Charity, he managed to save over a minute in the end to get the record. The final time was 1:20:56. A solid record, but now it had the opposite problem. A weak middle game with a really strong ending. In order to get the sub 120, the run had to be great from start to finish. But Zoo wasn't discouraged. He pressed onward, more determined than ever to get the sub 120. And the very next day after this 1:20:56, this happened.
I was feeling very good about it from the very start because I got my Cairo was a 440, and that was my individual level record for Cairo. So right off the bat, I was like motivated to keep it going. Got a decent regret this time. Got the time save, or a lot of the time save I needed for that mission.
When he built up this big time pool into Gravemind, you're kind of like, you don't want to set your expectations too high, but then he got a really good Gravemind. I think it was like a 905. That's just insane. So he's suddenly on this incredibly sick pace, and you're just hoping that it survives.
At that point, I was getting nervous again. I was letting the nerves starting to get to me.
12 levels into the run, Zoo had amassed a 1 minute and 23 second lead. Just Great Journey stood between him and a 119. But there was still so much that could go wrong.
At this point, when he entered Great Journey that far ahead, I was super nervous for him. He can either get his goal, he can be happy, or it's going to be the most heartbreaking run of his life. Having done some of those runs myself, I know it's not over until the final cutscene plays on Great Journey, and unfortunately, that's kind of how this run played out. Your heart sinks, and it's just tragic to watch.
Despite the deaths, the run still finished as a world record. Zoo had missed the sub 120 by just 14 seconds.
Like, can I just get it already? Can I stop choking the last mission and just clutch it out?
The good news was that Zoo now had 50 seconds to save in the final level. So once again, if he could just get there on a reasonable pace, he could save a bunch of time and get the record.
Wait, one side is bigger than the other side? What the fuck?
Like having a 58-25 split out of QZ, Quarantine Zone, people consider like a sub 1 hour out of QZ to be very good. I remember having like a 58-25, like this runs pretty nuts right now. this one could be it. It could be the one.
As long as he can stay close to his PB, he knows he's got a ton of time to save in Great Journey, almost a minute in fact. And this run was shaping up just for that.
I was 10 seconds behind going into Great Journey, but I had a minute of time save. There's so much time to save. This run should definitely be it. On top of that, I was streaming, so I was like excited to get the sub 120 in front of everyone watching.
In the final boss, there's some reinforcement waves that happen when you're killing the final boss based on when he gets to a certain health threshold. Now, normally, they don't really matter and you can get the final boss dead with the Johnson glitch. So once you kill the final boss, there is about 10 seconds before the level actually ends. And during that time, all the enemies and all your teammates, like, they're still active, they're still fighting out there. And if you're caught in the crossfire, you can easily die and just revert back to the very start of the fight.
So by the time I finally killed him, there was a brute right behind me. He punches me. I start freaking out. Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to save it. So I kind of just did a random input, and then I lost it there.
Bro, no way! No way!
Yeah, there's so many emotions. Like, I was angry, annoyed, I was embarrassed because this just happened on stream. This run was it. Tartarus was dead. All I had to do was wait 10 seconds, and then the run was finished.
It's heartbreaking to watch that happen, especially on a run so fast. It took a lot of me trying to, like, really reassure him and try to convince him, like, hey, you've done this once, you can do it again. You're in a league of your own. You are so far ahead of everyone else, and the paces you're getting are so consistently fast that this is going to come with time.
Zoo's motivation hadn't dried up. He knew the sub 120 was within reach. He kept pushing onward through the month of November. And on November 7th, he'd have his next good chance.
It started off really good. Like, even though it started off with some time loss, a 448 Cairo was still, like, insane. The missions after that went pretty standard. So I ended up being ahead by quite a bit. And then Regret came. Regret, everything went my way, basically. Then I finished QZ, ended up getting a QZ. A 57-53 split is, I remember also being hyped for that. Like, that's insanely fast for Halo 2 Legendary.
When I saw those splits, a run that was this fast and still gaining with time to save on Great Journey, I was blown away. This was shaping up to be one of the best Halo 2 speedruns of all time.
I do High Charity Skip. I remember specifically I practiced High Charity Skip a ton before this run, so I ended up getting a gold split.
Everything was aligning. Zoo had only died 7 times, none of which were particularly costly. It all amounted to a 24-second lead going into Great Journey, where he could save another huge chunk of time. The pressure was on.
My mindset with this run, like, as if I'm ahead at all going into Great Journey, then, like, I have this in the bag. I should have this in the bag.
When he got to Great Journey, I'm without a doubt certain that he was incredibly nervous.
As I progressed, everything seemed to go my way completely. Okay, so the end fight, the Johnsons were like in some sort of conga line. The Johnson behind the first one wouldn't shoot at Tartarus because it would mean, you know, he was shooting his own teammate. So he just didn't shoot at all. So that kind of prolonged the fight. Like, it was taking a while for Tartarus to die. So that gave the brute reinforcements, giving the brute reinforcements time to get on the platform and kill me. But that didn't happen.
Holy Literally, he
It's
did it.
just, it's so good. Like, there's, you know, mistakes here and there, but Halo 2 Legendary, you don't get a run that's going to be perfect. This had so few deaths, so few mistakes, so little trolls by RNG, that the time is just incredible.
I felt this was like one of the only times where I felt happy with the PB, you know? Like I felt satisfied, like this is actually a good run. So I was happy, like happy for the first time with the PB with the run. It was such a good run. I finally considered a run to be good.
To this day, Zoo's 119 remains on top of the leaderboard. There's been a recent push to break the record, thanks to a $3,000 bounty placed by Eki. In the first few months of 2023, Kryphin, Sinister, and Nails have all improved their times. But Zoo's world record still stands above them. 5 years ago, world record runs used to not be saved. The game was an afterthought compared to Halo 2 Classic. Now, Halo 2 Anniversary has a thriving community, with a world record that reflects that. And as solid as it is, there's no doubt that competition will drive it far lower in the years to come. This has been the history of Halo 2 world records. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed, since that really helps me out. Thank you.
That was so good. He didn't talk about your Valen, the most critical thing.
Sup, you beautiful
But that was so
bastards. Welcome
good.
back to the Philip DeFranco Show. It is Sunday, May 21st, and today we're blessing you with 2 videos. This first one that you made the very educated decision on clicking, and right after today's show, it'll be one of the top links down below. Go to youtube.com/@ZTabani, because the guy Zed got something extra special for you today. But with that said, let's just jump into it. Starting with We Buy Ugly Houses. Maybe you've seen the billboards, the ads, sometimes featuring a little cartoon caveman holding bags of money. They're Homevestors of America's franchise company. In fact, they've got 1,150 different franchises across 48 states, and the general sentiment is always the same. We'll buy your property in cash at a discount and you get out of an ugly situation. But according to a new bombshell report from ProPublica, the real ugly situation here is the way that so many of the franchise owners target elderly, infirm, and desperate homeowners with exploitative and manipulative business practices, as well as the way that Homevestors actually trains them to do so. With their investigation finding that Homevestors teaches their franchise owners how to target the most vulnerable homeowners looking to sell. Their training manual instructing them to build relationships with people who closely interact with those in difficult situations, or people like divorce attorneys, nursing home staff, probate officers, training them to even comb neighborhoods looking for signs of desperation, boarded up windows, shut off notices, and police tape, even saying, quote, quickly pursue the property where the trash pile indicates eviction. And a former employee of an ad agency that has worked with Homevestors saying they actively work to serve digital ads to people in nursing homes, or people who might take any amount of just incredibly low offers on their house to help cover their nursing home costs. With a former employee even saying that the owner bragged about the ability for ads to find an elderly person who had just broken their hip, and calling the injury a 60-day countdown to death and a deal. The training manual even instructing franchisees to, quote, find the pain of their sellers, saying pain is always a form of motivation. Once you find the seller's pain, you have a much better chance of buying the house. And understand, that's just the official training. Some of the franchise owners take their methods even further. And even all that's just how they get their foot in the door. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Once they're actually in, it gets even worse, with ProPublica's investigation identifying several franchise owners that straight up lied to get properties from vulnerable people. One reported example being Corey Evans with Patriot Holdings, with him reportedly telling a 72-year-old woman suffering from a hoarding problem that if she didn't sell to him, city officials would come with trucks to take her things and house. A social worker then later coming to the woman's home, disproving Evans's claims and offering the woman assistance. And with her now knowing the truth, she tried to back out of the deal with Evans, but then he sued her for breach of contract. Another reported example was that of Jason Ellingson of J Corp. He reportedly told a woman that her house was in such disrepair that it needed to be torn down, so he could only offer her $10,000, notably just a fifth of its value, with the seller then telling ProPublica, he basically convinced me it was a piece of shit. In my heart, I knew I was getting totally screwed, but I took the deal. With J Corp reportedly then going on to sell the house 6 months later for $55,000 with no repairs done. But it isn't just lying. Some franchise owners have just taken advantage of those who don't have the mental capacity to understand what they're signing. With Evans from Patriot Holdings reportedly pushing an 82-year-old woman with dementia into a contract for 2/3 of the house's value. And all that resulting in a years-long legal battle with her son trying to back out of the deal because his mother has dementia. Or for example, in 2020, you had a 78-year-old man who was unable to write a sentence or even name the year, being convinced to sell his home for half of what it was worth. And so of course it brings up the question, well, what happens when these people realize they're getting screwed. And while in many cases, franchise owners take them to court or use the bureaucratic system to stop the owners from selling to anyone else, something called clouding a title, which notably locks sellers into either a deal they do not want or an extensive legal battle. ProPublica finding more than 50 franchisees clouding titles or suing for breach of contract, and even noting that number might actually be too low because many disputes are just settled in private arbitration. And also finding that one of HomeVestor's top performing franchisees was found to have filed 24 breach of contract lawsuits since 2016 and clouded titles on over 300 properties. Which is also why you have real estate experts saying the sheer volume of the lawsuits and title notices filed by HomeVestor's franchises show just how predatory their business practices are. Now, with this, as far as the other side, you had HomeVestors quick to offer an explanation or justification for just about everything ProPublica asked them about, arguing that they educated their franchisees to be transparent about being a discount buyer and expressly prohibit lying in the handbook, and going on to say such methods are not tolerated and lead to, quote, swift action up to and including termination of a franchise. However, they also didn't say how many franchises have been terminated for this behavior, and ProPublica even reporting that the company had given awards to 8 franchise owners in 2 years who had engaged in those practices. HomeVestors also vehemently denied targeting based on devastating life events, but when ProPublica showed the receipts, they backpedaled, saying that it was only a fraction of their marketing budget. They also denied targeting demographics based on age, pointing to an internally calculated approval rating of 96% of homeowners, claiming that was calculated from over 500 customer reviews, saying since ProPublica reached out to them, they have since taken some action against accused franchise owners and open investigations into others based on ProPublica's report. As well as within a few days of receiving the questions, they also prohibited franchise owners from clouding titles and discouraged them from suing sellers, saying that it creates a paper trail that leads prosecutors and reporters to the doorstep. And that also appears to be true because outside of even this report, Evans of Patriot Holding, who we were talking about, he was charged with 2 counts of felony attempted grand theft of real estate property and pleaded guilty in August of 2020, with him being prohibited from buying or selling real estate during his probation. To which most might say, well, HomeVestors should have terminated the Patriot Holding franchise following his conviction, but, fun little thing, he's one of their highest earners. So instead what happened is Evans was removed as an owner of Patriot Holdings, a business he owned with his 3 brothers and a partner, but he was still included on an award that they received in 2021. And so with this, whenever we cover a topic like this, of course, I'm going to link down below so you can dive in even further. With this story, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts in general, but especially if you or someone you know has had some dealings with HomeVestors franchises or anything that seems predatory like this. And then I gotta give a major shout out to the sponsor of today's show, eBoost. I was just tired of the cheap and synthetic ingredients from other energy drinks, and I was really impressed when I came across Superfuel from eBoost. Superfuel has way better ingredients, plus the natural caffeine has been the perfect amount to get me through midday slumps without the jitters. It's sweetened with honey and fortified with 10 essential vitamins and minerals, nootropics, electrolytes, and antioxidants, and was voted best energy drink of 2021 by Eat This Not That. It's got no artificial colors or sweeteners, and it's great for everyone. Whether you want everyday energy, you're working late, have jet lag, or a pre-workout boost. And did I mention that each can only has 1 to 2 grams of sugar and 15 calories or less per can. Blue raspberry and strawberry lemonade have been my favorites. The flavor's so smooth, the carbonation just right, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any of them. So just go to eboost.com to prevent it. And we also talked to Noelle Martin, a global activist and researcher at the University of Western Australia's Tech and Policy Lab, who was actually a victim of synthetic image abuse herself. Right? Because what many people may not realize when discussing AI and deepfakes is just how pervasive the porn aspect is specifically. Where many discuss the misinformation aspect of deepfakes, and that's all well and fair, right? It is a legitimate concern. But according to Sensity AI, between 90 and 95% of deepfakes are just non-consensual porn, and 90% of that content depicts women. And as it often goes, the system is actively built against people that are fighting against it. Or while most states now have revenge porn laws, only a few specifically address deepfakes, with Adam Dodge explaining that even in states that do have deepfake laws, they're just not effective.
You're talking about a form of abuse that law enforcement is unfamiliar with, that courts are unfamiliar with. We could have perfect deepfake laws and still have trouble enforcing them because unmasking people doing anonymous things online, especially in other states or other countries, is really difficult.
Right, because the person creating those images may not even be on the same continent as the victim, which is also why Noelle Martin said that for any response to actually be effective, this has to be a worldwide effort.
This is a global issue that I believe could only be meaningfully addressed with a collaborative, coordinated global response, and how that will work will be something that we're going to have to figure out over time. But it has to be some sort of global response because currently it is not okay for someone halfway around the world to ruin another person's life forever.
And when she says ruin a person's life forever, she's not kidding around. Again, she knows firsthand how devastating this form of abuse is. Her victims have absolute horror stories of this, with MIT's technology review noting that some have had to change their names or try to entirely remove any trace of themselves from the internet, which I mean is just incredibly difficult. We constantly talk about how the internet's forever. With all of this, of course, resulting in a lot of people going, well, someone's got to do something. But in Martin's experience, it's easier said than done to get lawmakers to take take any action, especially since so many are operating on a limited understanding of the scope of all this. I mean, fuck, do you remember the TikTok hearings? Right, that was just one of the latest examples, at least here in the States, of our leaders not understanding technology one fucking bit.
Mr. Chu, does TikTok access the home Wi-Fi network?
Only if the user turns on the Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, I may not understand the...
So if I have TikTok app on my phone and my phone is on my home Wi-Fi network, does TikTok access that network?
Right, we gotta hope that mouth breather understands how deepfakes work, but also even the ones who do aren't necessarily jumping to solve this problem.
There's a lack of political will to address it. And there's just a lack of listening. And when you don't have lawmakers and policymakers listening to people and hearing what they need, then we're not going to see anything.
But thankfully, there are people trying to work to help the victims, both with what's available to them now and fighting to give them more options further down the road. Which, regarding where victims can start, Dodge noted that you basically have to come at it from a defensive perspective, just starting with taking down the images and videos that have been posted. But that's also something that many victims have found nearly impossible to permanently accomplish. With Dodge explaining that this effort requires being constantly proactive, checking every day, but also noting there are tools out there to help.
Some websites have specific portals where you can request to have those taken down. Google will de-index those websites from search so we can make it harder for people to find those images. And so there's different things that we can do there. And then to the best we can, we want to try to hold the person who has created them and who has disseminated them accountable. So, which can be more challenging, but that doesn't mean we don't try. It's important to set expectations appropriately, that it's hard to hold people accountable online for stuff they do anonymous.
And actually, in this line of thinking, you had the likes of Scarlett Johansson speaking out, where she's been a victim of deepfake porn, and she said in her case she found combating the content to be a useless pursuit. And explaining to the Washington Post, the fact is that trying to protect yourself from the internet and its depravity is basically a lost cause for the most part. Even if you copyright pictures with your image that belong to you, the same copyright laws don't apply overseas. And adding, I've sadly been down this road many, many times. But for Martin, this bleak situation is why she started speaking out in the first place, by saying when she found out that these kinds of videos were being made of her, it felt like her only choice.
So I needed to reclaim my name, and this was the only way I could do it. And I also knew that I wasn't the only one this was happening to, that there were many people who were the targets of this abuse, and it wasn't dominating discussion like it is today.
And it's been a long, sometimes turbulent journey as she started speaking out and becoming an activist on this subject. More and more videos were made of her, but thankfully she has seen progress. The first state in Australia to make non-consensual pornography like this illegal was New South Wales, and the Australian Broadcasting Corporation described Martin as the face of the advocacy for those laws. And so when there was legislative change that she helped bring forward, that was rewarding.
It felt very surreal. It felt amazing, actually, to be able to have that public condemnation of this abuse and to almost have that sense of validation that people were getting it.
But even with as massive as this is, like we mentioned earlier, she doesn't see this as the end, right? No single law can fix this.
It's becoming more and more clear that there are serious gaps and that any jurisdiction around the world is limited in what it can do. Just because we have laws doesn't mean they're working, but we are seeing, I guess, a sense of complacency about this issue and how we can constantly address it, because it needs to be constantly addressed over time as we see technology advancing and this issue evolving.
And so Dodge said he doesn't necessarily see new legislation as the answer, or the fact that it's hard to get politicians to act aside. He just thinks that there are more effective routes, with one of them being taking aim at the platforms that host this content.
One playbook that we like is financial pressure. So instead of pursuing civil action or criminal action against them, go after their advertisers, go after the payment processors that they use. If you take away their ability to earn money from these platforms, that's like what they did with Pornhub to get non-consensual pornography and child sexual exploitative material off those platforms. All the advertisers, the payment processors said, we're out until you fix this problem. And that money talks.
And with all that, also noting that another approach is just viewing this as a form of abuse that the public and law enforcement are already familiar with and equipped to handle.
What I want to see us do as a society is instead treat deepfake pornography like the crime that it is. It can be harassment, it can be a form of stalking, it can be a form of false impersonations. These are not new ways to abuse people. It's still power and control. It's still trying to humiliate somebody or violate their privacy. They're just using new technologies and tech platforms to do that.
But for now, that's where we're going to stop. We're going to pause, because there are a lot of different angles and ways to frame this story, and I want to keep covering it because it is something that's going to just impact more and more people moving forward. But in the meantime, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts, your experiences, any of that relating to this story. But no matter what, thank you for being a part of this special Sunday show. Of course, I have a whole week of news ready for you this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with your regular Philip DeFranco show. So I'll leave you as as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Nicolas Cage is in Dead by Daylight, what the fuck? Wait, why are they taking pictures? Cameraman. Cameraman. Oh, take a picture of the street. Of themselves. What the fuck? Damn tourists in the way. Is that an anime girl? Alright. I did pretty good, no? I mean, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Come on, this is pretty good, right? Saved. I'll continue next time I draw. I'll post it on my Discord. But I continue next time I draw, and yeah, thank you for watching. That Halo Spirit of Automation was so good. I know Atmospherical did one, and Jubanian did an amazing, like, world record nobody's gonna pass. But anyway, thank you for watching. Bye bye.